We got a blockbuster trade in the NFL recently between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. We got Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith going over to the Steelers. Mick Fitzpatrick going back to the Miami Dolphins. Breaking down the Steelers part of it today, Dalton. Steelers kind of had some issues at corner last year, and while Jalen Ramsey isn't the best corner in the NFL like he was in his prime, he's still a really good option for them.
Still a really good option and somebody who can help the Steelers secondary a lot, because you look at the Steelers defense last year, look, they were still the best pass rushing team in football with TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and all those guys up front, but cornerback was really their one big weakness. We saw them sign Darius Slay in free agency. Now they make the big trade for Jalen Ramsey, and you look at what they have now with Ramsey in that unit, it's possible they could be the best defense in football this year now that they fixed their biggest weakness. But let's take a look at the Steelers cornerbacks last year, what we're talking about. Third worst coverage grade in the NFL from the corners last year, 2.94 yards per coverage snap, a very average rate. Weren't forcing incompletions very often, giving up an above average rate of explosive plays, and 53.1% open target rate, also the third worst in football. So you talk about a team with arguably the best defensive line in football. You got an emerging player, a linebacker in Peyton Wilson. Still a pretty good pair of safeties, even without Minkah Fitzpatrick and Deshaun Elliott and Juan Thornhill, who they signed in free agency. But corner was really the big focus. This was the unit that lacked the top-end talent and the depth last year. So you still have Joey Porter Jr., who's a solid player, just got to figure out the penalty issues. But adding Darius Slay and adding Jalen Ramsey now especially gives you a lot of flexibility to succeed in coverage.
So let's break down Jalen Ramsey's game. What is he right now heading into 2025?
So he's still very good. You mentioned it. Maybe he's not the number one corner in football, maybe not with Sauce Gardner and Pat Surtain and those guys, but he was still the 11th highest graded corner in the NFL last year, playing for a Dolphins secondary itself that wasn't very good. And I think the biggest thing for me that he still brings is physicality and versatility, right? He's always been a guy, ever since his college days at Florida State, who he can play outside, he can play inside, maybe a little strong safety. And Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have already talked about he can play a multitude of roles for us. So I think when you look around the league, a defense that has this type of player, a corner who can do multiple things. You think about Trent McDuffie, think about Devin Witherspoon, think about Marlon Humphrey. Guys who can move around, play outside or inside, are a huge asset to a defense because you can put multiple guys in optimal spots, right? So let's look at Jalen Ramsey first. This is the last 5 years, and why I want to go with the last 5 years is in 2020 when he got to the Rams, that's when he really started getting back to the versatility he showed in college, playing in the slot, playing outside, anywhere we need him to, right? So the last 5 years, this is on the outside out wide, 88.9 coverage grade. That's elite stuff right there. Less than 1 yard allowed per coverage snap. This forced incompletion rate, that's double what we just saw from the Steelers corners, right? So he's still getting to the football. He doesn't give up explosive plays. And this last one we'll get into in a little bit here, 86.8 run defense grade. Physicality, versatility. Let's start on the outside. Look, you talk about a Steelers defense that's very aggressive in coverage. They run a good amount of press man coverage, right? You got big, long corners, Joey Porter. Now you got Jalen Ramsey, and you're looking at up top here. Look, this against the New York Jets. This against the New York Jets, their best player, arguably, and Garrett Wilson. One-on-one, press man, okay? Aaron Rodgers, ironically, his quarterback this year, so Rodgers doesn't have to face Ramsey except in practice. But look, this is simple. One-on-one, you can see 8 in the box down here, 2 tight ends on the field. You figure, okay, it's either a run or we're going to go man-to-man on the outside. Garrett's going to run a fade deep downfield. We're leaving Jalen Ramsey in press coverage one-on-one against one of the best receivers in football. That's where you just got to trust him, right? And he can still, even at his age, 9, 10 years into it, have the ability to lock it down in man-to-man coverage, right? You see him pressing Garrett Wilson off the line, squeezing him towards that sideline. Rodgers is going there. He's already predetermined. Once he hits that 5-step drop, he's going to throw this go ball to his best receiver and take his chances. But you see the ability for Ramsey still in year 9 last year to lock up some of the best receivers in football. We're going to take it to the end zone cam here. Where is Aaron Rodgers supposed to throw this football? You've got literally 1 yard of space to work with here on the hash. Ramsey's length still allows him to get to the football and break it up, right? So when you talk about on the outside what the Steelers are looking for, so maybe, there's been some discussion, especially me and Trevor were talking about it, where you go, okay, does he play in the slot full time? Does he play outside? What happens to Joey Porter Jr.? If you do want to play him on the outside in your base defense, now you're talking about, okay, he can still lock guys down one-on-one. It can be Ramsey and Slay in their base defense, and they can load the box and stop the run and play man-to-man coverage still.
All right, so let's go over to the slot now, because you mentioned before he's one of the more versatile defensive backs we have in football, really because of how much of his dog mentality, Dalton, all the way back to his Florida State days. How was he in slot coverage last year?
Really good still. 78.6 coverage grade is still really good. When you think about so many slot corners are smaller guys, right? They're 5'10", they're 190 pounds, they're quicker, they have quick feet. But Ramsey, even as a bigger guy, can cover. 78.6 coverage grade is really good. Yards per coverage snap allowed, almost identical to what it was on the outside. Not as many forced incompletions necessarily, but a lot of those throws get underneath him, and he's just asked to make tackles for short gains, right? You can still see here, identical 1.8% explosive play rate allowed. Fantastic. And this is a big one that we're going to talk about in a second. Again, 82.8 run defense grade, especially for a corner. Spectacular stuff. Let's go with the coverage end of this first, right? So against the Buffalo Bills, here he is now here in the slot. Okay, 2 receivers up to that side, plus a third one in James Cook. That's the guy who we're going to focus on. What we're going to get, 2 in-cutting routes in here. Okay, Ramsey's going to let these go into the zone coverage. James Cook, he's going to be isolated with one of the best backs in football on an option route. Cook is going to read Ramsey's leverage, and he's going to decide to either sit or take this outside. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now, Ramsey sits back. He sits back straight up. Cook decides to take the option route. Like we mentioned, he's going to try to break this outside. Now, is he open? Is he going to get a short gain here? Sure. First of all, Josh Allen spent the first part of this read looking down to his right. Didn't like anything that he saw. What we get here from Ramsey, and you can see already, Allen's got his eyes to him. He's winding up to throw, but Ramsey's already got his feet going. He's taking this T-step already, reacting up to James Cook. Look, he's one-on-one. If he misses a tackle or he misses an angle here on James Cook, he's going to score. All right, this is crucial when you talk about even underneath defenders. It's not man-to-man coverage, but it is a one-on-one matchup where you have to be a good tackler on one of the best backs in football, right? Ramsey reacts up to it. Sure tackle, one-on-one. Again, nobody else is here to make this tackle. If he breaks this or if he makes a wrong angle, down the sideline, gone. This is a part with Ramsey where you can rely on him. Look, that could be James Cook. That could be, who knows, Christian McCaffrey, any of the elite backs out of the backfield that you're talking about. Okay, when I can trust that guy in the flat now down closer to the line of scrimmage, I don't have to worry about explosive plays coming after the catch. The second part of the slot work I want to talk about is in run defense. Okay. So Ramsey, you're going to see a little shadow right off here. He's just off to the screen over here over a slot receiver. We'll get to him in a second. What's going to happen here for New England, okay? We're going to get a down block. This end is going to crash in. Hunter Henry's going to down block in here. And we're going to get one puller who's going to get out here on Ramsey and a second puller from my center who's going to get here. It's kind of sort of a counter look, kind of a pin pull look, however you want to go about it. The center and the front side guard are both pulling. And we're just going to get right out here with big 230-pound Ramondre Stevenson, right? So, get to the next slide here. Ramsey, here's the idea, is that he is going to have to engage right here. This is Micah Wenu. This is, look, the Patriots' offensive line wasn't great last year. This is their best guy. This is their best offensive lineman. You can see this play starting to develop for New England. The down blocks in here look good. We got people on the ground. Hunter Henry's sealing this off, and all of a sudden we have a play that looks really good for the Patriots because I've got my best offensive lineman on a corner, although not a normal one, and my center pulling around to get this linebacker. You can see where the alley's developing here for Stevenson possibly to have a big play out of this, right? The big thing is going to be for Ramsey. Look, he's not afraid. He does not care. He's got the skills of a cornerback, but he plays with the physicality of a linebacker. And what we're getting at here is you have to take on this guard and get around him somehow, not only to beat a guard, but then to tackle a 230-pound horse by yourself. Here's what we do. He took a little bit of a jab step to keep contained, and then got inside of Wenu here, right? Using the hands like a linebacker, even like a defensive end would. Using the hands, getting inside. And really, when you look at this, the linebacker didn't get where he needed to get to. Ramsey, again, is the last guy who can make the stop on this play. So now he's beaten the guard, the Patriots' best offensive lineman on the pole. Now he's looking to make a big play and a tackle on a 230-pound running back, and we do just that. When you talk about a guy who can act in the slot kind of as that third linebacker, right? We talk about nickel is the new base. When Jalen Ramsey is a guy who can be that third linebacker in run defense, who can give you extra support like that to take on offensive linemen and to tackle big, powerful backs like that, that's a huge asset with the versatility of your defense. When you're talking about it in the context of the Steelers, you get in a set like this and you go, okay, Joey Porter can play outside where he's comfortable. Darius Slay's obviously going to play outside where he's comfortable, but Ramsey, like Trent McDuffie does in Kansas City, allows you the flexibility to mess around with your personnel a little bit.
So Dalton, you look at what he did in the box too. You mentioned before he played in outside, he played in the slot, play a little bit in the box too, even as an outside corner. How good was he in the box for Miami?
And look, so now you're talking about, does he have to do it a whole lot considering the alignment? Not necessarily, but again, that kind of third linebacker or even strong safety type of role that he can play for you. Look, 65.9 coverage grade, that's something I would put in the good enough category, right? It kind of gets the job done. Really good yards per coverage snap. Again, doesn't allow explosive plays even from this alignment. And again, a really good run defender. We're going to take a look at one last play in coverage, though, because again, when you think about say the Steelers' biggest rival, the Baltimore Ravens, right? That's who you're trying to take down in this division.
A lot of 12 personnel.
A lot of 12 personnel. What do you have to worry about? Yeah, Zay Flowers, but really Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, all those tight ends, right? So when you have a guy who can line up in this formation, okay, so we've got one tight end here, one tight end here. Here's 12 personnel, like you just mentioned. In here, we're considering Ramsey a linebacker. It's a little bit, if you want to call it a slot with Hunter Henry as, a little wider out than a normal tight end would be. But essentially, that's what we're talking about. 8 in the box, and Ramsey is another linebacker. He's going to have Henry. There's going to be a switch release. This outside receiver is going to go in here. He's essentially going to have Hunter Henry one-on-one. Again, kind of an option route sort of thing where Henry's got to figure out, okay, how am I going to get open on one of the best corners in football, right? Fast forward here. Now, I've heard of keeping people at arm's reach, but Hunter Henry, you don't have to take it so literally, okay? But this is the type of physicality you're talking about. How many times have we seen it over the years? Rob Gronkowski, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, they get away with these push-offs, and they win with them because cornerbacks generally are, 5'10", 190 pounds, push them off, get open, don't get called for it, whatever. Jalen Ramsey's fighting through a stiff arm here, and he's still finding a way to have Hunter Henry covered, okay? Now we're talking about Brissett was looking to his right, then he goes back to his left, and Henry's going to start to get off this and improvise and cut back out here a little bit. So Ramsey's got to not only fight through the physicality, but get through the scramble drill, right, and still make a play. You see here, Henry starts to get just a little bit of separation out towards that sideline, pushing off, trying to figure out how to get there. But the other thing Jalen Ramsey still has in year 9 going into year 10 is that recovery speed. He can make up that space and still find a way. Look at this. He's parallel to the ground here, still find a way to make a breakup on the football, make a play on the ball. It's just a matter, it's that combination, physicality, recovery, speed, and still, look, he doesn't get enough credit for it. His knowledge of how to play in zone defenses, in man defense with his technique. He's been doing this for a long time. He's still really good. Maybe you wouldn't put him number 1 on the list, but he's a lot better than everything the Steelers had last year.
Under Mike Tomlin, the Steelers have one of the best defenses in the NFL, but one of the only weaknesses on that defense was their cornerback room. From adding Darius Slay after adding Jalen Ramsey, that might be a strength for Pittsburgh in 2025.